The display isn't real. We've heard this a couple of times. Do we find out what it actually means? Yes, I think we do. Let's get started. This is the final episode of the season 1 of Silo. Thanks for coming back. My name is Sean Redman. This is Sean's take on things. And today we're going to be talking about this episode. So let's unpack it. But before we get started, this is your spoiler warning. If you haven't seen the episode, please go watch the episode and then come back here and check this out. So we pick up right where we left off from episode 9. Juliette is in Patrick Kennedy's room, and they have the hacker there, and they've accessed the hard drive. I really like Patrick Kennedy as a character. Patrick Kennedy, played by Rick Gomez. I think he did a really good job. A really likable kind of guy. And he's caught up in it. He doesn't want to be caught up in it. He wants to stand at a distance, but he quickly realizes that there is no distance. We get to see the Jane Carmody, I think it's Carmody, video. It's the Jane Carmody cleaning video. And I think that's important. And I'll explain what I mean by that in just a couple of minutes. Stay tuned. Juliette is very smart, and she's learned things her entire life about the silo. And what she does know is that you can travel in the trash chute unsupervised. The caveat being, you only have 5 minutes to get where you're going before people start throwing trash down the chute again. So that's how she's been traveling and not being picked up by any cameras. So they take the hard drive to a junction, and they hook it up, and they attempt to link all of the screens in the silo to show the Jane Carmody cleaning video to the entire silo at one time. And they succeed in linking the videos, and everybody in the watchtower sees the video come up. And Bernard tells them to close their eyes, turn around, and cover their faces, which they do. And personally, Bernard goes to work, and he shuts down all the screens in the silo. So what we don't know is how much of the video showed on all of the other screens in the silo. We know that it showed in the watchtower, but we don't know if it showed everywhere else. Bernard tells all of those people that they will unsee what they just saw. Now that's a very strange statement. Unless the old woman who did the fertility things advice for people was correct, that there's something in the water that makes people forget. Maybe it is true. They will unsee it. So anyway, Bernard realizes that she must be using the trash chute to get around. And they order recycling to be thrown down the chute. So one of the deputies that has always liked Juliette opens the hatch and yells down the thing, "Juliette, get out at the next hatch. I've been ordered to knock you out of the chute." So it gives her a couple of minutes to get to where she's going, but she doesn't quite get there. When Sims shows up on the scene, asks if they've gotten her, she says she doesn't know. He says, "Make sure." And they throw a gigantic, what looks like to me, an air conditioning unit through the hole. Juliette sees it coming and lets go of the ladder and drops however far in free fall into the pile of trash at the bottom. So this is the second time Juliette has jumped and should have died and really didn't. But this was a big jump, and luckily for her, somebody was paying attention at the bottom, sees her hit the pile of trash, grabs and pulls her off before that AC unit smashes into the thing. So now she's down in the down deep. I tried to do the math. I tried to figure out where she might have been that she let go. but I'm not sure. If you figured it out, if you remember what level that's on where the recycling is, because she was somewhere a little lower than 122. 122 is where they hooked up the thing. So maybe she was at 126. So did she drop 20 floors? 200 feet? But anyway, she jumped, she lived, dinged up, and as they're patching her up at Martha's place, Martha Walker, played by Harriet Walter. She did a great job in this role. She's done a great job in every role I've ever seen her in, but she's doing a good job as the agoraphobe. Agoraphobia is the fear of leaving your house. And Knox, the head of mechanical, calls judicial because Juliette dropped out of the sky or chute. Shirley's a little upset at Knox for doing that, but Juliette agrees with Knox because if they don't turn her in readily, all of the down deep will get punished. Judicial shows up. Juliette says, "Can you stall him for 1 minute? I have to talk to Martha." So they try to stall. We don't hear the conversation between Juliette and Martha, but Sims and Bernard come in fairly quickly. Sims makes some threats to Juliette, saying, my son wants to know if this scary lady's ever coming back. To which Juliette replies, "How many families say the same thing about you?" Which is accurate and fair. Bernard smashes the hard drive, destroying it. Maybe. We see a little bit later that he kept all the pieces, and the platter from inside it, which contains the actual data in a hard drive, is actually still intact. So it could become a thing later if we decide that it needs to be, or it's destroyed, and that's that. We won't know. So Bernard cuts a deal with Juliette and says, if you agree to stop saying that you didn't ask to go out, I won't punish everybody down here, and I'll tell you what happened to George. Juliette agrees. So they put her in shackles and walk her up the stairs back to back to the janitor's closet. And they remove her shackles, and Bernard and Sims take her in to the janitor's closet, and she gets to see the watchtower. And Bernard does say, I know this is a breach of protocol, but I've made an exception for the sheriff before she goes out to clean. And they bring up the footage of George. George is arrested, and rather than being tortured to give up the people that he was in contact with, he did, in fact, go over the rail voluntarily. He didn't have much of a choice, but we do see it. And we see him look right at the camera as if possibly looking right at Juliette before he went over. So now she knows. So she's ready to go out. Her father comes and brings her a stew or home-cooked something in a big cauldron and asks why she wants to go out. And she deflects because she agreed to not talk about that anymore. And he understands. He gets it. He gets the move that she makes. And then we get Shirley bringing Jules the tin of hush puppies again. We saw the tin come with only one hush puppy left in it. This time it is full. And Shirley says, Martha said you should keep the whole box for good luck. And Juliette shields the camera, opens the box, and reads a note from Martha. So the part that I skipped, let's go back. After they take Juliette from Martha's apartment, Martha overcomes her agoraphobia and leaves for the first time in 25 years. And she does say to herself as she's psyching herself up, we're not going to die. It just feels that way. And she forces herself step after step. And she goes up to the mids to her ex-wife's apartment. Her ex-wife works in supply. And they begin to talk about the fact that Juliette stole heat tape, and that's why Bernard hated her. And nobody can understand why it's such a big deal. And the ex-wife says to Martha, compared to your tape, their tape is shit. And Martha says, yes, unless it isn't. So now let's skip ahead. Martha sends the note that says, Juliette reads it, we get a close-up on it, and it says, you wanted to know the truth. The truth is, I love you. Have no fear. They're good in supply. So Juliette gets geared up to go out. We put her into the, I guess it's like an airlock vestibule. And when she's in the airlock vestibule, she's sprayed with something, which is really not decontamination, because you don't decontaminate people that are on their way out. You would decontaminate people on their way in. Nobody cares if the people that are going outside to die. So I have a theory about that. Let's come back to that in just a second. So she goes out and she sees the beautiful green that every cleaner sees. And then she sees what we've talked about several times. She sees the birds. And it's the same birds in the same formation at the same point in the video. And she begins to realize that the screen is a fake. It's a lie. But it's this screen. It's the screen on the cleaner's face. That's the lie. And now she knows the actual truth. And she turns and walks up to the sensor. And everybody's watching. And she holds the wool up that she should use to clean. She holds it up and drops it. And the first time in the history of the memory of the silo, she's not going to clean. And she turns and starts to leave. And Bernard says, it won't be long. She'll drop in a minute. And right when she's supposed to, she trips on a rock that she can't see because it's not in her digital reality video. She trips and falls, and Bernard says, right on schedule, because that's right where everybody else starts to die. And she realizes that the rock that she sees in her video is Holston. And she can, there's the moment where she figures it all out. And she takes his badge out that says truth and sets it on him, giving him his badge back, which was a nice moment. And then Juliette stands up, walks to the top of the hill. Bernard says, oh shit, and runs out of the cafeteria, runs to the server room, where we see that the fob that was blinking red in the last episode that says 18 on it is really the key to the server room. He opens the server room, and we see in his glasses the fluorescent lights kick on in a huge room. We don't get to see the room, but we see the reflection of all of the lights that Bernard sees. So we have an idea how big it is. Back outside, Juliette runs out of Jane Carmody video, and the video ends. So she sees. And she sees a vast field where we see circle after circle after circle of what appear to be silos. Just like the silo she came out of that she can turn around and look at, we see other circles. And in the distance, we see the ruins of a city. Now, if the book, Georgia Guide for Kids, a guide to Georgia for kids, we're in Georgia, that's probably Atlanta, the ruined city, but I don't know if it matters. But in the field of silos that we see, there's more than 40 that you can discern. And if you're like me, and you can pause it and really, really look, you'll see that not all of them show the opening where people can leave the silo. Meaning, it's filled in. They haven't opened it. It hasn't been used. So it could be that when we look at that field where we see the sensor, little hut, and the place where the opening is, those are silos that are functioning. And the other ones are dead. But Juliette looking at this field is the end of the season. So what do you think? Where are we going? Is Juliette going to do what in the next season? Now, I don't want to know what happens in the books. I don't want that discussion. I just want to talk about what we think we're going to happen in the series. Now, I did think, one thing I skipped over, I did think that when she was talking to Bernard in her cell, and she said, why don't you tell people about how green it is? Why don't you tell people about the big the steel door that George found in the down deep? Bernard's reaction to when she says that, I don't believe Bernard knew there was a giant door in the down deep. And I think that door is going to play a pivotal role in season 2. I'm going to make a video about what I think is going to happen, or how I think they're going to do it in the next season, but I'd love to hear what you think. What do you think of Rebecca Ferguson and Tim Robbins and everybody in this show? Let me know in the comments. If you like these videos, give me a thumbs up. That lets YouTube know I'm doing a good job and pushes it out to more people. And if you hit the subscribe button and the notification, we'll let you know anytime we release a new video. So for now, that's a wrap on Silo. I thought it was a great series. I thought everybody in it was great. Let me know if there's anything I didn't cover that you'd like me to cover. And let me know in the comments what other shows you're watching. All right? But for now, that's my take on Silo Episode 10, Outside. I'm Sean. This is Sean's Take. The more you know. See you next time.